Well, that's where I was in 1966 with a big dream of being on the radio someday. Had to find a band, and we started getting together in '66 at the folk clubs of Southern California. Nobody knew what to do. I mean, one guy was 16, one was 17. I was the old guy. I was 20 years old. And a friend of ours had written a song that was pretty good. And we put it out. It was our first minor hit. Now, keep in mind that the first review for Nitty Gritty Dirt Band said in Billboard magazine, doubtful if they'll ever be captured on record. And I don't blame him, because what was happening on the radio were things like, some of you might remember that. Or you turn on the radio and you hear, you know, you knew John Fogarty was going to start singing. And now I'm playing at Fogartyville. No connection, just a coincidence. And here we were playing things like Washington at Valley Forge, freezing cold and up spoke George, Vododio, Vododio do. Well, no wonder they said doubtful they'll ever be captured on record. But here in 1967, that first album came out, and it had that Buy For Me the Rain song on it. And that was an incredible start to a career that led me to a dream that is now being realized, because I'm playing in Sarasota at Fogartyville. That's what I'd hoped for years ago. That's me playing the banjo. And with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, I played the banjo, mandolin, fiddle, and guitar, and try to find a place to fit. And this is our 50th year. One of the things I get to do at Fogartyville is play a different kind of music than normal with the band, although I do a lot of Nitty Gritty Dirt Band songs, the ones that I like, and tell people about it. And I like to ask questions, so if anybody's coming to the show, be ready with a question you might have. Like, does anybody here have a question? Throw one out. Someone in the audience is asking the audience, the newspaper office, how did we come across Michael Nesmith's Some of Shelley's Blues? Well, back in these days that you see there, we were living around Hollywood. I was up in Laurel Canyon, and Michael Nesmith was running the Hootenanny at the Troubadour every Monday night. $15 he'd make, being the MC of getting people on and off stage. Well, he had songs, great songs that he hadn't recorded, and some that he had, and some that other people had. There was a group called the Greenbrier Boys on the East Coast that recorded Shelley's Blues, which is that, tell me just one more time the reason why you must leave, which we'll be doing at Fogartyville. And Linda Ronstadt also recorded it, and then Jeff heard it, and we went up to Nesmith's house to get a demo of that, and that's how we got that one. Now with Kenny Loggins, he was hanging around the dressing room. Keep in mind that in these years, nobody knew what we could do. You know, everybody wanted to be on the radio or get a record deal. And this kid hanging around, I got some songs you guys ought to record. And I made a demo with him in my Laurel Canyon apartment, which was $90 a month, utilities paid. And same place is probably $900 a month now. At least. It's probably more than that. But, I recorded a bunch of Kenny songs. One of them was House at Pooh Corner, and one was Santa Rosa, different songs. And we put them on albums, and Jeff would sometimes have a songwriter friend, or he'd write one. I wrote one. Jimmy Fadden, who lives here in Sarasota, he wrote a couple of our early songs and one of the later ones. One of my favorite Dirt Band songs is called Workin' Man, and Jimmy wrote that. It was a #1 song. So the songs would come about by different ways, and as long as somebody's recorded and released a song, anybody can go record it and release it. People often ask, did you have to get permission? No. As long as it's been released and available for the general public, you could have a song covered by somebody else. And that happened to friends of ours in these days in LA. Right at this time, right around '68, there was a group called the Sunshine Company, and they'd had 1.5 hits kind of, and they put out this record, and the Fifth Dimension heard a song called Up, Up, and Away. Sunshine Company, that record was so good, it was number 32 in 2 weeks. Fifth Dimension went in that week and recorded it, and it went right over them. And the Sunshine Company disappeared. And except the bass player and drummer didn't. They just didn't have a job for a couple months. They went and played with Greg Allman, because the Allman Brothers had lived with us for 6 months in L.A. when they first came out, and my brother was managing them. They lived in a house that we had in Hollywood Hills, and boy, was that a mess. A 4-level house with 2 bands in it. And the bass player and drummer, the Allman Brothers thing didn't work out. Greg stayed in L.A. and found a bass player and drummer, and that was Merle Briganti and Larry Sims. And they played together for about 4 or 5 months. Then Merle Briganti and Larry Sims went their own way, which led them to being in Loggins and Messina when that first came together. It was a strange time because Jimmy Messina, who was living in Laurel Canyon, I mean, I had mamas and papas down the hill, Scott McKenzie across the street, Ian Wickham next door, Mothers of Invention at the bottom of Lookout Mountain. I mean, it was just a crazy time. Jimmy Messina was living on Laurel Canyon Boulevard, and we played chess a few times, and he'd left Buffalo Springfield. He just started Poco. And after Poco, he was trying to be a record producer, and he called me up to the house with Jeff and said, Kenny, we'd already made that album, the Kenny Loggins songs that were on the Uncle Charlie album. This story's almost over, so I'll let you go in a minute, but I have to finish it. Kenny calls up and says, we got a song you ought to hear. And we drove away, and Jeff was saying, oh, I don't want to do it. I mean, I don't think it's a hit. Anybody can write Your Mama Doesn't Dance and Your Daddy Doesn't Rock and Roll. So call Jimmy and tell him no. And I said, Jimmy, it was nice of you to play that for us. It sounded good, but Jeff doesn't want to do it. And he says, okay, well, maybe Kenny and I'll put it out on our own. And that's when Merle, the drummer, and Larry, the bass player, joined that situation. And 6 months later, they're flying around the country on Lear jets. And we're still in rental cars. But that's okay. It worked out good, always. And that's kind of how you can understand how that mishmash of stuff was. And that's what I try to bring to Fogartyville, some of the background of that as well as the music. So I hope that answered your question. I'll never forget the first time we did The Tonight Show. Our single that was out that got us on the show. We were playing Thanksgiving time. Well, I think I'm not sure, it was in March. We were playing in March of '67 in the Village, and we got a call to be booked on The Tonight Show. We're doing 2 sets a night at the bitter end, and it was a well-named club. And we could go we taped the show at 3, and we ran back to do our shows. And, hey, Mom, yeah, we're going to be on, and all that stuff, you know. And the song starts. First time on The Tonight Show. We made it back between sets, sat in front of the TV, and then the singer started to sing. They didn't like pop rock and roll bands then, or whatever we were. That was it, no vocal until the very last verse. And we drug ourselves back to the club and said, oh, well, let's do the second set. It was a good lesson. It got better after that. Anyway, the Dirt Band, we're heading to our 50th year, and I'm ending the 49th. Well, actually, it's my end of my 50th year performing. I started playing before the group, and I continue to do solo shows around the country whenever I can. And one of the biggest things that happened to us is in 1971. We got together in the studio to make an album called Will the Circle Be Unbroken? And that was with people like Merle Travis. We do some of his music at Fogartyville. We'll be doing that December 20. And I'll have John Cable with me. He's a previous Nitty Gritty Dirt Band member. He went to Russia with us in 1977. when we were the first American group to go to the Soviet Union. It was like a whole other country over there. Okay, and they had a different word for everything. And John did the 28 shows with us in Russia and worked with us for 2.5 years. He's a lifetime friend. Also joining me will be Matt Kartsonis, a guy that used to be in the Austin Lounge Lizards and a couple other groups. He's a great bluegrass singer, a funny guy, and fun to watch. I have much fun watching him as the audience. And here's a song that Merle Travis, a guy that wrote 16 Tons, Dark as a Dungeon, I Am a Pilgrim, and a lot of great songs. He showed me this. Come on, boy. How about a head from my bass player? Oh, wow. Thank you. In case you don't know, I'm John McEuen. I'll be playing at Fogartyville December 20th. I'll be bringing my guitar, banjo, mandolin, and fiddle, and some stories about this band, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, which I've, well, fell into in 1966, August 12th, around noon, no, 2 o'clock, when I had all the guys over to my house for a little swimming party. And I said, hey, how about you and me? And it works out. Basically, I wanted to have a situation where I could play the banjo with some people behind me. And the 5-string banjo, some people say, great American instrument, but originally came over from Africa as a 4-string and 3-string instrument. It's one of the only things they let the slaves take on the boat with them. In 1848, some guy put a 5th string on. That's a billboard on Sunset Strip for the 5th album we made that had Mr. Bojangles on it, and a song by a young writer nobody'd heard of, Kenny Loggins. Got to record 4 Kenny Loggins songs on that album, and Kenny's always remembered that. This is a style that comes from the 1800s. Well, clawhammer frailing. Come on, boys, let's see what you can do. A little medley of tunes. Let's start in 1848. Soldier's Joy. that up especially for newspaper offices. One of the oldest songs written, actually one of the first rap songs ever written, 1872. Back then they said if you don't want to dance with your mother-in-law, you do a little tune called the Turkey in the Straw. Here's how they played it back then. Make it look harder. It is. Come on. Thank you. So come on down to Fogartyville, December 20th for the John McEuen's 70th birthday party. The reason I'm doing this is that, yes, I'm turning 70, which I never thought I'd reach when I was 20 or 30. And it just is a shock. But I wanted to shock my system really good and know it. And it's really a good time to be on stage in front of people. And I'm looking forward to it. Is that okay?